Hey kiddos, Mr. Magani here with another science lesson about animals. So this whole week we've been talking about animals, and we talked about animals in different ways, right? So when scientists get animals, they can't just say, "Oh, well, I don't know what this animal is," and they need to figure out what kind of animals are alike and which ones are different. So what they do is they classify animals depending on what things that they need to live and how they act, right? And one of the biggest things that they do is they separate animals into two categories. The first one is vertebrates, and the second one is invertebrates. Vertebrates means that it has a spine. So if you go to your back, like take your hand, put it on your back, and you might feel a little bumpy thing in the very middle. That's your spine. The spine is very important because it gets information from your brain. It goes down the spine and it goes to where it needs to go. So for example, let's say your stomach goes gurgle, 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 because it's hungry, right? So it sends that information up your spine to your brain and tells your brain, hey, I don't like something. I'm empty. Feed me. Your brain says, okay, I'll let the human know. And the brain goes to you and says, hey, you're hungry. You hear that sound? Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. You see that? You don't like that, right? Human, make sure you go eat. And your brain is actually doing that. So it sends information throughout your whole body. Your brain sends information to your body saying, get your hand, pick up that donut, put it in your mouth, chew it. Your brain's doing all of that, it's sending the information throughout your whole body. So being vertebrates, that's how we think. That's how we function in our world. So we're vertebrates too. We know that because you can feel our spine. Now, if it's an animal that's not doesn't have a spine, it's invertebrate. Let me show you. One of the animals that does not have a spine is a spider. Spiders don't have spines, and like it's an arachnid. And a lot of animals, sorry, a lot of like bugs like this. And I don't want to say an insect because it's technically not an insect; it's an arachnid. But how they work is they don't have bones. Their bones are on the outside. It's called an exoskeleton. So inside there's fluids that move around from like one place to another, but they act very different than us humans or us vertebrates. So the spider would be an invertebrate. It's an arachnid. It's not an animal. And also the bee. The bee is another type of insect. It has an exoskeleton. It has three body parts. And we're going to talk more about insects in a couple of weeks. But right now we're talking about animals. So right away I want to take these two and I want to add them to our list up here because I got a list up here and we're going to put them in the invertebrates. There are other invertebrates. There are actually more invertebrates than there are other animals that are vertebrates. The invertebrates, though, they get really complex. We're talking about mollusks. We're talking about snails. We're talking about crustaceans like crawfish and crabs. So those are all invertebrates because they don't have a spine. Okay, so I'm going to move you over here a little bit. You see this little spot right here? This is our spot for invertebrates. We're not going to really talk much about invertebrates until we get to insects. But a bee is an invertebrate, and a spider is an invertebrate. These invertebrates are called insects and arachnids. And we'll talk more about that. Okay. But first, let's go into the main thing we were talking about. Today we're going to talk about the classification of animals. Okay. So when we're talking about animals, we're talking about the animals that are vertebrates. They have a backbone. And I'm saying that word vertebrates so you can remember it and like know that the word vertebrates means an animal that has a spine. Like you're a vertebrate. So something you should know, right? The first vertebrate is something that's very common for us because we're that animal type too. So one of the animal types there are mammals. The word mammals here. Mammals, it's a mammal because it has fur. Mammals have fur. Do you have fur? You have hair on your head, right? Fish don't have hair. You know why? Because there's something else. Mammals have hair. I've got a lot of hair going here, right? A little bit less up here, but more here. But I'm a mammal, so that's why I have hair. We're mammals too. We just kind of go in the same category as them. And the thing about these categories is they split off. So first you're like invertebrate or a vertebrate, then are you a mammal or a reptile? And it goes on and on until you get to what you are, okay? It starts off big, we're all living things, to we're animals, to we're mammals, to we're, primates, and it goes smaller and smaller until you get to what you are, human being, okay? So the first one is mammals. A bear is a mammal. And you know it's a mammal because it does two things. It has fur. So I'm going to put my bear right here with the mammals. Okay. And mammals, they have fur or hair, right? They have fur or hair, and the mother nurses the babies. Okay. So once a baby is born, the mother gives milk to the baby from the mama's body. It doesn't. Other animals that are not mammals can't do that. So as a mammal, mothers nurse. We say mothers nurse the animals. That means the mothers give milk to the babies, right? So the mother nurses. And the next thing is we're warm-blooded. And let me explain what warm-blooded means. So what warm-blooded means is that we have to make our own heat. And what I mean by that is whenever it gets really cold, you know how your body will shiver? Your body is doing that and creating motion to produce heat so it can warm you up. Your body has to be at a certain degree. If it gets too high, you get too hot, you die. If you get too low, you get too cold, you die. So your body has these ways, because we're warm-blooded creatures, like animals, warm-blooded animals, we have ways of trying to keep ourselves warm or making ourselves cooler. If we're running really a lot, what happens? We start to sweat. That's our body trying to cool down. We might even start breathing more because our body's getting hot. We're trying to cool ourselves down. When it gets really cold, we'll shake. Our hands will want to get close to each other so that we can keep ourselves warm. That's how we can keep warm. Other animals are not like that. For example, the fish. The fish is cold-blooded. If it gets too hot, it dies, just like us. But there's nothing it can do to protect itself. If its environment gets too hot because someone's messing with it for whatever reason, if you put a fish in a fridge, it won't start shaking to keep itself warm or get a coat to get itself warm. It'll just die. So fish is another animal, classification of animal. So I'm going to put it right here. Now, fish, you know it's a fish because it has gills. It doesn't breathe air like us. We breathe air like this. They have to breathe their air through their gills. So fish have gills to breathe air. The gills suck in water and let water out, but when it sucks in the water, it takes in all the oxygen that's in the water and it uses it to breathe. So they also need oxygen too. They just breathe in a different way, okay? Also, fish lay eggs. See, we don't lay eggs. Moms have the babies in their tummy, right? And then they have the baby, right? So we're mammals. That's how mammals have babies. Fish, they lay eggs in the water, and those eggs hatch out little fish, right? So that's the difference between fish and mammals. Another classification we have is birds, okay? You know it's a bird because what do birds do? They lay eggs too. But unlike fish, birds have feathers. Now, I would say that birds fly, but not all birds fly. Think about it. Is there a bird out there you can think of that doesn't fly? Did you say penguin? Penguins don't fly. They slide. They slide on their bellies. But they're birds too. They have a type of feather that's really thin and very like small. And they also they eat fish and they lay their eggs. Okay. So even though penguins don't fly, they are also birds. So I'm gonna put birds here, and we're gonna put they have feathers and they fly. Oh, sorry, not all birds fly. They have eggs. Sorry, they lay eggs. Okay. Next ones, I always gonna get them confused, but we have amphibians. Amphibians I kind of get them confused with reptiles a lot, but the main thing to know is that amphibians, when they lay their eggs, they have to lay their eggs in water. Reptiles don't. But a lot of times they're green or different colors. So a frog is a popular amphibian. Also another popular amphibian would be salamanders. And a lot of times their skin, it needs to stay moist, so they're kind of slimy or slippery. So amphibians lay eggs in water. And they're also cold-blooded. So, for example, a frog won't know it's getting too hot until it's just dead. So a lot of those animals that we have to make sure if we're having them as pets is we take care of them. For example, our bearded lizard. Our bearded lizard is a reptile, which we're going to get to right now. And I had to buy a heat lamp to make sure that he stays warm, because if he doesn't get enough warmth, he'll die. But amphibians, they lay eggs. They're cold-blooded, which means they can't regulate their temperature. If a frog gets too cold, he's not going to start to shake to warm himself up. If a frog gets too hot, it can't sweat to make sure it stays cool. It'll just die. So it needs to make sure that it stays in its environment or it'll not make it. Okay? But they lay eggs in water, and their skin is usually smooth and slimy. So skin is smooth and slimy. Okay. And the last one we have are reptiles. Now, this is where I get confused because I used to think that turtles were amphibians, but they're not. They also like to live in the water, but they're like other reptiles that like to live in the water, like alligators and crocodiles. So they like the water too. And the reason they like the water is because, well, a crocodile likes to be outside so it can get nice and warm, but if it stays outside too long, it'll get hot and it'll die. So it needs to make sure it cools itself off by going into the water. It can't cool itself any other way. It has to cool itself by going to water or maybe getting into mud. Same thing with sea turtles. Sea turtles and alligators are reptiles. Okay, they're also cold-blooded. Okay, maybe put it closer to reptiles. So they're also cold. So sea turtles are reptiles. Okay, they're also cold-blooded and they also lay eggs, but they lay their eggs on land. Amphibians lay their eggs in the water, while reptiles lay their eggs on land. So they lay eggs also, but they do it on land. Okay. And another thing is amphibians have smooth, slimy skin. Reptiles, they have bumpy skin. So if you can see that turtle, it has scales, right? So reptiles have scales. Okay. So those are the five classifications of animals that we have. So first, we got to see if it's invertebrate or vertebrate. If it's an invertebrate, then we're talking about bugs or mollusks or insects or arachnids. Those are invertebrates. Those are on this side right here. These two are invertebrates. When we're talking about vertebrates, then we can go into like their different classes. Are they mammals? Mammals, the mother nurses the baby. The mother makes milk for the baby. The other animals can't do that. Are they birds? Do they have feathers? Do they lay eggs? Right? And even though some birds, a lot of birds fly, but some don't. Is the animal a fish? Does it live in water? Does it breathe through its gills? Or is it, and does it lay eggs? Or is it a reptile? Reptiles have scales. They like the water, but they're not always in the water. Their skin is bumpy, and they're cold-blooded, and they lay eggs on land. Amphibians lay eggs in the water, and their skin is smooth and slimy. Okay, and they're also cold-blooded. So these are the different kinds of animals and how we classify them. So we can classify them in 5 different ways. Do you remember? Mammal, like me and you. Fish, like little Nemo. Bird, like a parakeet or a penguin, right? Reptile, like an alligator, or amphibian, like a frog. Those are the 5 classifications. So hopefully you can kind of remember some of that, but if not, it's always good to go look at different animals and tell yourself, what do I think it is? Real quick. Pig, what do you think? Mammals. How about a tiger? Also a mammal. You see it has fur? Some of you might think, pigs don't have fur, but look closely. See that? Some hairy piggies out there. Mouse, mammal too. Dragonfly. Do you think it has a vertebrate? It's an insect. Butterfly, insect. Fox, see that fur? Definitely a mammal. Duck, it's got feathers, so it's a bird. Yeah. How about a tropical bird? Feathers, so yeah, bird too. Ladybug, bug. Yeah, it's an insect. How about a horse? See that? See that hair? It's a mammal too. Elephant. It has hair also. It might have little bitty hair. It might have like a little beard hair around its body, but yeah, it's a mammal too. Giraffe, definitely mammal, right? Doesn't lay eggs. Otter, mammal. Monkey, mammal. Dog, cat, 2 mammals. And that's the thing you gotta think about. A dog and a cat are very different. This is a canine mammal, and this is a feline mammal. So even though they're in the same, they're both mammals, we're gonna separate them later on, right? But they're both mammals. Cow, mammal. Caterpillar, it's a bug. It doesn't have caterpillar is an insect. It's just a teenager insect. We're going to talk more about that. It starts off as an egg, then to a caterpillar, then it's going to go into a chrysalis, and eventually it'll become a butterfly. Or some of these that you might think is a caterpillar, they might turn into a moth. And we're going to talk about that when we get into insects. Okay. Dolphin. This is a hard one. Dolphins, you might think is a fish because they kind of look like fish. They have fins and all that, but they don't have gills. They have holes at the top called blowholes. So for these are actually mammals. So for the dolphin to survive, it has to go up into the top of the above the water, and it has to breathe with its little blowhole at the top of its back, and then it goes back in the water and it's basically holding its breath. But yeah, dolphins, mammals. Same thing with lions, mammals. There are a lot of mammals out there, but there's different that are very common. But there's different ones out there, such as frogs and toads, which would be amphibians. But I'm hoping you got something out of that, and I hope you learned a lot about the animals and their different classifications. Remember, there's 5 of them, right? There's mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Okay, and we're gonna do some more stuff with that later on. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put some questions down low, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Okay, and for your visual sticker today, since it's Friday, our special one today is gonna be a live one, an animal. Ready? Sorry, buddy. Come here. Ugh. He's sleeping, so he's kind of sleepy right now. But this is my cat, Artie. Say hi, Artie. Artie is a junkyard cat. We found him in a junkyard, but he's very, very nice. He likes to play. When you scratch his chest like this, and when you scratch his ears, he really likes it. But he's a tough cat. He likes to go play outside. If you notice, he has a cut on his head. We think he was fighting with another cat. But your visual sticker for today is Artie, the cat. Say hi, Artie. Sleepy man, why you bothering me? Okay. All right. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one, kiddos. All right. Bye. There you go. See you. See you.